Hello everyone, this is Mr. Lang, and today I'm working in the Microsoft Azure fundamentals, and I'm learning all about how Microsoft Azure's cloud computing works. And we got to this exercise, which is pretty cool, and we get to create an SQL database. And so I always sometimes want to know what in the world some of these things mean. And so SQL is a structured query language. It's a standardized programming language that is used to manage relational databases and perform various operations on the data in them. So pretty cool. And guess what we are creating? A database. So a structured query language is SQL. And so we're going to work through this module together and kind of see how they do. But it's kind of cool. I'm going to click activate, and then I'll talk a little bit more. We need to activate our SQL database. But it allows us to play. It's a sandbox, if you will, and allows us to play and learn and make mistakes and kind of play around in it. And it is, if I read the directions here, Tailwind Traders has chosen Azure SQL Database for part of its migration. They're bringing in data from different parts of its company. You've been tasked with creating the database. In this exercise, you'll create an SQL database in Azure and then query or inquire about some data in the database. All right, so here we go. Task number 1. It looks like we are good. Create the database. So in this task, you can create SQL database based on the AdventureWorks LT sample database. So there will be a sample database. They'll have data already in there, so that's good. We don't have to go in and put in a bunch of data because, as we know, companies have lots and lots of data. So it's kind of redirecting us right now to our Microsoft Azure, and I'm looking up in the upper right hand corner, and I can see I'm logged in with my Lang's Computer Science account, which is great. And I'm just going to take a second to kind of move my screen around so I can kind of have some information on one side of the screen and my data on the other side of the screen, or my directions. So here we go. Select create a resource. So in the upper left hand corner, create a resource. I'm going to look down at databases. So these are all the different services that we can do, which is pretty cool. But I'm going to go ahead and go to our databases, and it asks us to create an SQL database. So once that populates, here we are. We're kind of in the building phase with all these different options that we need to work through. So the basic features. So here we are. We're going to enter some details here. The subscription, all right, looks like it's set by default to that, which is great. The resource group, though, Sandbox Resource Group Name. So we need to go ahead and click on the down arrow here, and we need to choose this option right here. And then we're going to scroll down here and say the database details, the database name. We're going to give it a database name of DB1. And you can see that I've done this a little bit. So I have some options available to us. Looking at the names, everything is checking out, which is good. Server says create new. So I'm going to go ahead and click on create new there. And I will be patient. And now it is asking us for the next settings. We're going to go down and take a look. The server name is going to be the SQL server with 4 N's there. And it says in the parentheses, replace the N's with kind of a unique global name. So I'm just going to go server and maybe West Mich for West Michigan. And I got an X over here, and I need to look at that. Oh, that's right. I can only contain lowercase letters. Let me change that capital M to a lowercase m, and looks like we are good to go with that. My location is in the eastern part of the United States. My authentication method is the SQL authentication. Looks like we're good there. And now our server admin name is going to be the SQL user. All right. And then the password. It looks like they are asking us to use this password here. I'm curious if they'll let me copy that. Be careful of not copying any spaces before or after, and paste it in. Looks like they will, which is good. Password is confirmed, and it must match, which it looks like it is, so that's good. And we're going to go ahead and select OK. And now it's asking me if it wants to update the password, and we'll do that for this project here. And now complete the remaining fields for the Create SQL Database. All right, let's go ahead and look. Want to use an SQL Elastic Pool? No. So we're down here now with this question right there, and it is set by no by default, which is good. Compute storage, general purpose. So general purpose looks like it's set. We've got Gen 5, 2V cores, 32 gigabytes of storage. That's kind of our computing. We could probably go into there, obviously, if we wanted to configure more of the hardware, but it looks like we're good there. And then backup storage redundancy. They want geo-redundant backup storage, so looks like we're good there. And then they got this great picture of kind of what it should look like. All right, and we're done with that, and so select next, networking. Let's go ahead and go to our networking, and you can see up above here, we're on our networking page now. And now our connectivity method, public endpoint. So network connectivity, no access, we want that to be set to public endpoint there. And looking at our picture, public endpoint, looks like we've done that all right. And no and no, and default, and TLS 1.2. Looks like we've got everything based on that picture. And now we're going to go to security. So let's go ahead and go to the security tab. And let's see what we need to do here in the security and for enable Azure Defender for SQL. All right, so I like to look at the directions here. And it is asking us to choose not now. We're not going to start our free trial, not now. We're just going to use the sandbox. All right, and additional settings. Let's head on over to additional settings and the data source. All right, and we're going to change that data source to sample. Changed. All right, and the correlation. Looks like we are good there. All right, so moving down, review and create. So we're going to go to review and pricing details. They kind of talk about that, but obviously we're using their sandbox. Here's all of our basic settings, our network settings, our security, and additional settings that we have set up. Things look good, and now we're going to choose create. Now, as it says in the directions here, it can take 2 to 5 minutes for this server to create and deploy the sample database. The deployment pane shows the status with updates for each resource that is created. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We are on this screen. So I'm going to go ahead and pause my video recording right now, and once it's loaded up, I will be right back with you. Okay, looks like my deployment is complete. Very cool. And direction 12 says, hey, when it is complete, go to the resources. And right there, go to resources. So this kind of guides me right through, which is really nice. And here is my database, my DB1, my SQL server for West Mich, DB1. And this is kind of my home page, my overview, which is really cool. Shows data for the last hour. I can change all sorts of stuff, and so again, this is really cool to me, seeing that I now have a database online that I can play with and mess up. Again, it's a sandbox. If I mess it up, no big deal. I can start over. So now on direction 13, it says in the command bar, select Set Server Firewall. So let's go ahead and do that. Select Server Firewall. The firewall setting page appears like magic. Set the Allow Azure Services and Resource Access this server to yes. All right. Yes. All right. And in the command bar, select Save. So let's go ahead and hit Save on that. It's updating our firewall rules there. And it looks like we're on task number 2. We're going to start testing this database, which is cool. So I'm going to go ahead and hit close on that. I'm back in my overview. And in Azure Resources menu, select All Resources. And we are actually in those All Resources. We have everything right there for us. Search for and select the SQL Database resource. All right. And again, we are in that resource, our DB1. We are there. So we've selected it. In the SQL Database menu, select Query Editor Preview. So these are all the database menus all the way over here on the left. We're going to go to our Query Editor Preview. All right, and it's asking us to log in. All right, and so when it asks us to log in, again, here is your sign in username, and there is your password. And I asked it to save my password, so I'll be curious to see if this will work. And it says it can't open the server right now. And because I've done this once already, or maybe twice, you want to keep track of this IP address. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to open up a notepad, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste that into my notepad just for future reference. And there it is. All right, and because the first time I did it, I was like, okay, what did I do? But reading on the directions, you will not be able to sign in because your IP address needs to be enabled in the firewall rule. All right, so we'll click OK to this, or actually, I believe we are going to go back to the overview now. And yes, we know unsaved, it'll take us away. We're going to go back to set server firewall settings. And in the client IP address section, so we'll kind of scroll down here. So our client IP section, which is this right here. Let's take a look at this IP address. That should match that, which it does. So that's a good thing. All right. So in the command bar, which is up above, we're going to select add client IP address. All right. This will add a rule name that contains your IP address in both the start and the end fields, which is good. All right, and we'll go ahead and click on save. And it's updating our firewall server settings. Awesome, thank you, Governor. And we'll go ahead and close that because we are done with that now. We're back in our overview. And we're going to select our database, which we are in right now. And we're going to sign in again. So we're going to go over to the query editor preview. And now we'll try to sign in again. And now we are into our database, which is really cool. So here, as I mentioned, this is a template. So it's got a lot of information already. And we'll come back to this in a little bit, but it's got all sorts of data in regards to our customers' addresses, our different products that our company has, our product descriptions that they have, sales order details, sales order header. So this is very important data from a business standpoint of view about their products, their descriptions, their sales orders, all sorts of stuff, which is really cool. So now we're going to go down. So after you sign in successfully, the query pane appears. Enter the following SQL query into the editor pane. So we are going to, in the editor pane, which is this right here. So it's query. Again, query kind of stands for inquiring. You're inquiring data. So you could type all this or you can copy it. And I'm going to do a Control C, come over here and do a Control V. And just kind of looking at this, it's asking for maybe the top 20 PC names in the category name, as well as the product names, the product categories, for sales and stuff like this, and their IDs. And we don't need to know all that information, but we're going to choose Run here because if I scroll down in the directions, it asks us to select Run. And I'm just going to kind of full screen this for a second so we can look at all of its glory here. And I'm hoping if I close this, I'm not going to close my server, but we'll find out. Your unsaved edits will be discarded. Cancel that. You know what? I'm going to see if I can can I move that over? Well, I wanted to make that. Let's try to do this real quick. All right, so I'm going to pause my video because if I mess up, then I don't want to show you that on video. We'll be right back. Okay, I guess I could have showed you that because it did. When I clicked that X, it took me out of it. But I'm going to go back to, here's my database right there, and hopefully it will open up. And yeah, this looks much better. I'm going to go back to my query editor pane and choose OK. And yes, here we are. So I'm going to paste that data back in. It should still be on my clipboard, which it is, and run. So I can see stuff a little bit better with this full screen. I'm not quite sure why it didn't go to full screen here, but here it is. Here is the data from our query. And you can see maybe we're dealing with some awesome mountain bikes or something. So here's some road frames. All right, Black and 58 has something with their company. They know what 58 means, maybe a specific type of road frame. We have different sport helmets here, mountain bike socks, long sleeve jerseys, different sizes. You can see the sizes there. Our road frames, again, red and black with, again, the different numbers, probably dealing with the different sizes and stuff. But this is the data that we just queried about. Now, where did we get that data from? It pulled it from these tables. So again, if we look category name is in here somewhere, I bet. And then if it is not, I apologize. Product name, let's see here if there's a product name. But again, this data is in here somewhere, stored purchases maybe, but it pulls this data from these tables. So let's take a look at maybe like our product categories. If I click on this and say, okay, I'm going to select the top 100 rows. Let's do that. It is querying now, and here is all of our different product categories, from bikes to components to clothing, accessories, mountain bikes, road bikes, touring bikes, handlebars, and so on and so forth. So here's all of our different categories that we have, because, hey, in the glove category, there's a lot of different gloves. In the jersey category, there's a lot of different jerseys. Mountain frames, a lot of different mountain frames. Let's go down to maybe our, let's see here, our customer addresses. That's kind of cool. Let's check out that query. And you can see we have another query. And sometimes it takes a little bit for the system to query this information. It's running in the background. We don't have all the top processing power that it is giving us, but it is working on it right now. And you can see now that I'm back here, this was my customer address, I believe. Here's their IP address, where they're at, main office, shipping office, and stuff like that. So kind of cool. With that, let's check out our query 4 with our sales order. So again, it may not have all that data in our tables right now, but I was just kind of curious looking through here. Product models, let's see if we have any information about that. So it's bringing up a new query, and it takes a second for the results to come into play. But it's kind of cool, all this data that we can look at in this database. So think of, again, those big companies, the Amazons, when people are purchasing things, they have huge amounts of data. And they're going to want to look at that data and make decisions on what's selling, what's hot, what happened to different products. So again, they know what all of this stuff means. Their sales order numbers, so they can look at sales order number and they can look that up and see exactly what was ordered, when it was ordered, who ordered it. So that's a lot of data there. And again, it still looks like it's working on finding some stuff about their product model is what I was querying there. So kind of cool. So this is our database, a place for us to play around, ask it some queries and stuff like that. And this is all run on the cloud. We don't have to use our computer processing to do this, because, man, I couldn't imagine the processing power it would need to compute some of the data that these companies are inquiring about at any given time. And it will do it very fast, because they have amazing hardware there, much better hardware than could be found on any computer that you may have sitting at your desk. Well, thank you for your time and hanging out with me while I created this database and kind of looking through a little bit about some of the queries that I asked for. I thought it was kind of cool to go through this, what they already have set up. Yeah, thank you again.